Good morning, CNG 124. Today we start, I believe it's week 6. We start week 6. Yes, because I just read week 5. With this week, some of you've noted that subnetting is difficult. It took you a while, or you're still working on it to become masters in this situation. And I'll agree. This is probably one of the most rough concepts to get. Good news, I've never had anybody quit the face-to-face course at last week. Usually when they're making their twisted pair cables, just have you guys been sending in. I got one here, a few back behind me. I've had people quit at week 4. But nobody ever quit at week 5 or week 6, even farther on the course. Usually, if you make it this far, you're gonna complete the course. Subnetting is difficult. There's no real simple way for me to. I can teach you my way, but if you look on Google, if you look on YouTube, there are many different ways out there that show you how to subnet. And reading through the posts. Let me get this up here. Reading through the posts, you have to find your exact way that's going to make sense to you. I can present the material. I can show you how I do it. Maybe if you reach out to John, John can explain how he does it. But really, you just need to find a way that makes sense to your mind and able to process the information given there. Remember that in the IPv4 address, there's going to be 8 bits, 8 bits, 8 bits, and 8 bits for a total of 32 bits. So how do you figure out how many bits are being used and what's left over? That depends on the subnet. You start at a /8 for an A, a 16 for a B, 24 for a C, and you start to either move up in your bit count or move down in your bit count. And remember, if the values within a byte are all the same, we can only have 256 addresses within that byte, but we can only have the max 255 within that byte. So this goes clear back to, I believe, one of the earlier labs. I want to say lab 3 or 2, where we're looking at correct addresses. When we start to subnet, you need to make sure to verify that that's a correct address. With the network address, remember the network address is always going to be the first address. Whether when we're starting to subnet, the first address is usually a 0. The second subnet address, a network address, is going to be a number. It could be, let's see, it could be 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. And then from there, it's just going to multiply by 2 again. The only mistake I could say, make sure you be aware of, is when you're subnetting, is make sure you're not doubling the number. Make sure you're multiplying the number, just adding the range of the subnet. Sometimes people make a mistake on that lab, and instead of going from 32 to 64, they go 32, 64, 128, when they should be going 32, 64, 96, 128. So make sure you're adding. I haven't started grading. I'll start grading the labs today. Make sure that you rehearse this over and over and over. If you have any questions, send those questions in to myself or John. We'll work on subnetting a lot, so we have it down. And as you see, we have subnetting 2 this week. Another video. My videos are really the same. Once again, it's easy to see some answers. So I give you the answer very, very early, just so I make sure we get used to this. Practice, practice, practice. The more you practice, not only the better you're going to be, but the more comfortable you're going to be. When we start to move to A's and B's, you'll be dealing with more bits, or I shouldn't say more bits, because it's always 32 bits. You'll be dealing with different area of the bit range. So make sure you be aware of that. In this lab, I open up to, given the IP address this, can you find what the network address is and what the broadcast address is. Remember that this is just an IP somewhere within a network, a subnet, and you need to find the network and broadcast. It could be the network, or it could be the broadcast, or it could be just an IP within the middle. That is up to you to find. Make sure you watch the videos that are accompanied with the Lab 7. Those will help you out. Oh, there was a discussion on the cheat sheet that they found on the internet, and I think I have one. I think I might have loaded one. Okay, it looks like I didn't load one. So there are cheat sheets on the internet. Google. Subnet cheat sheet. And some of these cheat sheets are good, and some of those are bad. And all I say is they take some learning and deciphering, especially when you're starting out. Here we go with the bits borrowed, or total bits on the left. CiscoStudyTools.com subnet cheat sheet. This one might be a decent one to use so far. It doesn't give us classes A, B, and C's, but it just really tells us what the subnet mask is going to be at different levels when we're dealing with like a class B, a class C, but it doesn't go on beyond that class C, which is kind of uninformative. Let's try another one. I know when you guys were mentioning, you said it was difficult because there's an A, B, and C, and I think I know the one you're talking about. I'm just not finding it. But it says subnet masks left. Is it this one? Might be this one, or one similar to this one. I don't see that picture. But if you look at the host, I don't know how good this comes in. Maybe I can save it and then look at it. Save picture. Save. Okay. Kind of blurry, but as we see with class A's, B's, and C's, it gives us how many hosts are available. And some of the graphs, this is a little misleading, so make sure you're paying attention to what you're looking at. As we see, if we started to do subnet in a class A, oh, this is even in a different language, cool. As we see in a class A, the number of subnets escalates up as we move down. Of course, we can get to a 30. We can't go beyond a 31, or we can't go to a 31, 32 because that'd be impossible. We have no IPs to assign for the Class A host within the Class A. One Class A subnet, we'd have 16 million. Two Class A subnets, we'd have half that. Within the third Class A /10, we have 4 subnets, each with 4,000. So you kind of see how these correlate across. Once we got to a B, we could have 256 subnets, each with 65,000. And same thing when we go either to a B, we could have 1, as this is still within a Class A. If we go to a B, we'd have 1 subnet of 65,000. You kind of see how that reflects in the Class A. Impossible to have a Class C until we get way at the bottom, right? And then we kind of see a reverse here. We have 65,000 in a Class A, 256 in a B, 1 in a C, and then if we look at the hosts, we'd have 254, 254, 254. So as we see the hosts go down as we move higher, and the subnets are reversed. Did I say that right? Yeah, we have less hosts as we move further down. We have more subnets as we move further down also. So be aware that some of the cheat sheets are misleading, and I do my best to point out where they go wrong. But you have to take, whether it's a class A, B, or C subnet, and then it has to be the exact A, B, or C host reflected in that. I think that's good. This was a longer video this week. Make sure you rehearse, study, and I'll do another check-in for this week.